Ooh, there's a whole Eoten down there. They spawn, and then... Oh, there we go. They attack us as well. Okay, so they're very aggressive. They're like the Ents of Lord of the Rings. Well, hello there everybody, and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays. We talk about nature while playing games. My name is Will, I'm an ecologist by training, and we are back in Nightingale, and we are going to hopefully wrap up the Sylvan's Cradle section of the game, and then we're going to move on to the next realm. Now, stay tuned for a bit of a channel update towards the end of this episode, but for now, let's head over to where the Site of Power is, and then from there, we will just head on over to the area with the corrupted roots. We're going to end this corruption, hopefully almost once and for all, and then we are going to move on to the next reach. I just realized that I do need the Confluence Potion, so we do need to head on over to our Respite to just go and make that. Alright, there we go. Confluence Potion. Voila. Now I have set up a portal right over here, which leads directly to Sylvan's Cradle, and here we go again. Now here from the Site of Power, where we currently are, we need to head basically directly north. I have cleared these 3 infestations here in the settlement, and now we just need to head on over to that crypt over there. Now it is an interesting idea, the fact that the corruption is spreading through the roots, because that means it is most likely spreading through the mycelial network, through the network of the root fungi that are all over the place. So most likely the mycorrhizae living on the roots of the trees. So the fungus living on the roots of the trees, helping them get nutrients and helping them with the, well, technically supposed to help them with the immune system as well. But now that has been infected with some kind of foreign agent. And well, we are going to hopefully get rid of that corruption today. Oh, it's actually right over here. That is where we need to be. Alright, having a look around, we've got a Beelzebub over there, we've got a Carnoot over there, some deer, and some Bandersnatchers over there. Okay, we're going to just steer clear of the Bandersnatchers. We're probably going to have to take out the Beelzebub, the Devil's Boar, basically. Or maybe not, maybe it isn't even here. Doesn't look like it's here. Okay, great stuff. I'm just going to head down a bit. There's no nature really to talk about here. I'll be with you guys again when we get down to the corruption. Alright, you're joining me at the bit of an end of a chaotic fight here, because I accidentally gave all my arrows to my companion, which means that I just have the slow loading rifle here. I don't actually have my arrows to quickly get rid of all these little guys attacking us. So it has been a bit of a challenge, but here we are. Just gonna shoot this heart over there, and that should get rid of... that should prevent them from respawning. And there we go. Thank you. Thank you there, Percy, for shooting the last one. Finally doing something. Alright, yeah. Lots and lots of corruption here with the roots. We'll get to that in a moment. Percy, come on. I want my arrows back. I want my arrows back, arrows back, arrows back. Alright, finally I have some arrows. That was a bit of a mistake there. Nonetheless, here we are with the corrupted root. So this, judging from, you know, what I know about infections and stuff, this would be the root of infection, with the Fae most likely corrupting the mycorrhizal network right over here, and then from here it spread through the roots, through the mycelia, through the fungal bodies, to the rest of this realm. But yeah, this does remind me very much of how some infections would work, where even if you chop down the top of the trees, let's say for example you find a corrupted tree at the top, you chop it down, treat it at the top, but the roots may still be corrupted, and then, or have this fungal infection here, and then when it does regrow, that fungal infection or that corruption just regrows with the new stems. So yeah, we need to address this to cure the realm. So let's try to do that, shall we? We're going to pour the Confluence Potion on the roots there, and now it does seem as though the corruption is contained, at least for now. Now, with this corruption, this speaks to the importance of actually getting rid of the source of infection, rather than just treating the symptoms. So that is very much what one would do if you are fighting, for example, a disease that's wiping out certain animals or plants. You need to actually go and address the cause of it, and try to get rid of any infected vectors, any organisms that could be transmitting the disease again to uninfected individuals. If you look, for example, at Tasmanian devils in Tasmania, those Tasmanian devils are suffering from devil facial tumor disease, which is an infectious cancer, basically, which are infectious tumors that are wiping out the Tasmanian devil population. So let's say, for example, you have uninfected individuals and you want to keep it that way. Well, of course, you shouldn't have them come into contact with infected individuals because then they're just going to get that disease again. And that's very important to consider if you have reintroduction programs. For example, you want to reintroduce some Tasmanian devils into an area. You must make sure that there are no infected individuals in that area. So hopefully now we have gotten rid of the source of the infection and now this corruption will hopefully subside. Now, the thing is, we can't technically just leave this. We now need to clear all these trees and then replant uninfected individuals and then hope that we have no more infection. Anyhow, now it is time for us to finally head on over to the source of power and go end that threat there. And the best way to do that is, of course, to just use the ring course here, because that gives us 30 tier 2 essences just by flying around. And you know, what's not to love about that? Ooh, there's a Holt Eoten down there. That is very cool. Okay, let's have a look at that first. Yeah. Stuff that. So the Holt Eoten here is whenever there are... So certain trees are actually Holt Eoten that are kind of in hiding. They're just dormant. And then when you chop a tree down, or cut a tree, or damage a tree, well, then they spawn. And then... Oh, there we go. They attack us as well. Okay, so they're very aggressive. They're like the Ents of Lord of the Rings. Or treants in a lot of other games as well. So basically sentient trees, and it seems as though they've got these ganglia here, those nerve dots there, those blue glowy orbs. Those are the sources of it being able to think, okay, or the ability for it to move its muscles. That seems to be it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to interfere here, because, well, it is being aggressive towards us as well, and we're going to just try to shoot those ganglia there. There we go, that did a nice chunk of damage there. It is basically its glowing weak spot, literally. Now, the thing is, being a tree, it doesn't seem to have any direction it is necessarily facing. It is kind of facing in all directions at the same time. There we go, that was another nice shot there. So you can't really sneak up on this either. Okay, I'm stuck in the briars there. Haha. And I was hoping we would actually see a Holt Eoten at some point, and here we are. Right, no eyes though, but it is able to sense vibrations, most likely through its roots that touch the ground. It's able to actually detect where you are and then respond accordingly. And there we go, we got Eoten wood. But there are also a bunch of bound down there, which we may just want to get rid of in a moment. It just seems to be a bunch of normal bound. It's not like a hotspot of theirs. Interesting, we did get sulfur there, so again, like playing into the devilish themes here with the bound, with fire and brimstone basically. And there is a bear as well. We're just gonna have to check to see whether the bear decides to come for us or not. Not going to shoot the bear if it's not heading towards us. Oh, there's an essence trader here as well. Now, I've never bought anything from these traders, but you know what? I'm going to buy the Green Thumb moniker. Because, you know what? I think that just suits my character so nicely. Okay, now we're heading to the site of power. Now that we have no more Holt Eoten to fight. Now, as with the crypt with the corrupted roots, I'm most likely going to not show you guys the entire progression through the site of power here, instead just skipping to kind of the end where there is something natural / unnatural to chat about. Alright, so I'm just going to head on in here. So I'll be with you guys again in a moment. You know, the spyglass is such a useful thing. I mean, we've got a puzzle down there and we need to, you know, touch all these glyphs. And the easiest way to then find them is just, you know, look through your spyglass and it'll show you there's one there, there's one there, there's one there, there's some there. So easy peasy just to find them all. It saves a lot of time running around looking for something that's difficult sometimes to find. Ooh, there's a little spider here. Very much reminds, well, there was a little spider, very much reminds me of the redback spider, one of the widows or button spiders, as we know them in South Africa. Of course, highly venomous. Don't want to be bitten by them. It's apparently extremely painful to be bitten by them. Thankfully, touch wood, I haven't... Oh, hello there. I have not been bitten by them yet. Luckily, they also prefer playing dead rather than, you know, fighting. Thank you, Percy. Oh no, Percy is down. Fine, you want to fight with swords? Take this. And that. Hello, Percy. Are you alright? Thank you. Welcome back to the land of the living. Oh, hello. Just knocked me down from above there. I knew that was going to happen at some point. I was hoping it wouldn't, but it did. Fine. Take this, and this, and this. Ah, there they're spawning from. Alrighty. Alright, now we have descended all the way down. And as you can see here, lots of little roots all over the place here. So again, looks like there's something to do with the corruption. And I think if we head down a little bit more, we'll find the real source of it all. Ha, there is Azazel the Penitent, apparently. Alright, so what we're going to do is we are probably going to have to take out Azazel the Penitent. And looks like Azazel is some kind of corrupted massive bear. Or at least it has taken the shape of a massive corrupted bear. So it seems as though the corruption has also taken hold of Azazel here. So it jumped from plant to animal, which really doesn't happen. I can't recall any case of that happening in the real world. But, you know, in fantasy settings, as it jolly well could be. Hi guys, just Future World popping in here, just to say that, well, there are actually fungi that can jump from plants to animals. The most significant one being Sporothrix, which is responsible for sporotrichosis, commonly called rose handler's disease. And that is a fungus that goes from the soil or the plants where it occurs into cuts or scrapes that you may have, and then it infects you. And it is actually quite significant. If you are immunocompromised in particular, it can be quite bad. It's generally not fatal. You need treatment though, but it does result in quite significant scarring on the skin, and it can infect your lungs, and all kinds of bad things happen. So yeah, there are some that can jump from plants to animals. All right, now back to the action. As far as I know, these trees over here, these are the corrupted trees again, and Azazel, once reaching a certain threshold, will go and actually heal from these trees. So you then need to chop them out to prevent Azazel from healing. In fact, there is actually there are a whole bunch of people that try to chop down the trees. Oh my word, I've never noticed that. Oh, that's so cool. That's a cool detail. Alright, now we're going to try to get as much damage as possible on Azazel. No, okay, well that didn't work. I thought maybe I could actually get a heart shot. But I could not. We're just going to have to try to get out of reach. There we go. Okay, Azazel does quite a bit of damage there. Hello, Azazel. So being a big bear, oh, there we go, Azazel is in fact going to heal now. There we go. So, tapping into the corruption here. So again, the whole idea with the fungal threads actually tapping into the other fungi. So tapping into the mycelial network. This is giving us an opportunity to actually shoot Azazel a full 2 times before he launches at us again. But yeah, being a big bear, quite fast, surprisingly fast. And of course, very deadly. And there we go, he's tapping into the corrupted trees again. Trying to heal. Okay, I think he is going to heal again. So we're doing quite a bit of damage against him. Oh, there we go, tapping into the fungus here, into the corruption. Now, luckily, Azazel doesn't have a massive, great turning circle, so really a brute, but you can easily sidestep. And suddenly, Azazel his body disintegrates. Now, as far as I understand, Azazel here was basically a human that decided they would basically sacrifice themselves to save everyone else. And that's why it is Azazel the Penitent. Now, the loot we get from Azazel is actually very, very nice. So one can farm Azazel constantly by just sleeping in Sylvan's cradle. So just sleeping in the bed and then just coming through the whole site of power again. I believe you don't have to fight all the enemies again. You just have to then fight Azazel. But that is a nice way of then getting the hide here, the bone, and the meat. And as you can see there, health, extra health, health regen, maleficium resistance, and some durability. And there again, health, health regen, maleficium resistance, and durability, and likewise there as well. So very, very useful to get these materials here. And use that in your armor and in your whip. Well, I think only in your armor, really. And this, of course, will allow us to get the Empyrean knowledge over here. And that means we have unlocked Welkin's Reach as well. And that is where we will be heading in a bit. And then just a quick update regarding the channel, because, well, it does take a lot of time to make these videos. And even though I'm not doing this for the money, it's been quite bad the past few months where we've had no income from the channel. And to remedy that, I am going to launch membership on the channel. And with the membership, there will be a few extra things coming along. Things like badges, which I'm designing. Things like specific emojis, which I'm designing. And then also there will be members only videos, but I don't want to exclude anybody if you're not able to be a member. Those videos will become available, generally will just be a little bit later. So my 2 videos a week will still be public. They will just be a day earlier for members. And then there will be some extra videos that I'll be making as well, some either behind the scenes or things I find in the garden or when we go on hikes or expeditions. Those types of things I'll be making little videos of, and they will be members only, but only for a month, whereafter they will become publicly available. So you will be able to view them then, it will just be a little bit later. As time goes on, I will be showing you guys a bit more regarding the membership, which will roll out the 1st of December. And now, let's quickly have a look at a desert realm, which I have opened up here on the portal. Now, we're not going to Welkin's Reach yet, we'll do that next time, but for now, let's head on over to a different realm. And here we are, we're going into the Antiquarian Desert Realm. Alright, let's have a look here. Now, this is a typical desert environment, and there are 2 things I quickly want to talk about. The first one is right over here, in fact. This is an aloe, and this is Aloe ferox. This is, I think the game calls it, yeah, there we go, Cape Aloe, and that is, in South Africa, we know this as bitter aloe. No, that's actually a bad name because all aloes are in fact bitter. But the bitter aloe, well, it is extremely bitter. I have tasted it. When I was a kid and when I would bite my nails, my parents would take some of the sap here and actually put that on my fingers. Yeah, it's very bitter and you very quickly learn not to actually bite that. Also, the handlebars on my bicycle used to chew on that. Well, if you don't want to get anything chewed up, the sap of this will very, very quickly stop you from chewing on anything. But yeah, bright orange flowers. Now in the light here it looks very strange, but it is bright orange in color. It attracts sunbirds and weavers and all kinds of birds that pollinate it. And it does have this stalked inflorescence here. It also has, which is very, very strange, right over here, you can see it has these dried leaves hanging down. This we call the skirt. And the skirt there is actually to protect it against fire. Because the core of this aloe is actually vulnerable to fire. And if the aloe here didn't have that skirt of leaves there, it would burn whenever fire comes through the system. And they do occur in some fire-driven ecosystems. They also do occur outside of those fire-driven ecosystems, but they do occur in some fire-driven ecosystems. So fire is going to come along. And these are very long-lived plants. So at some point they are bound to have fire coming through. And so that skirt there actually is like a fire blanket in essence and protects the inside of the stem. So it protects the vulnerable bit against fire. Of course, it is succulent. They can see these thick leaves. They do store water in the leaves. So during good times, they can store excess water in there. And then during the lean times or drier times, they can use the stored water to just carry on surviving. They also do use a fascinating method of photosynthesis known as CAM photosynthesis, but we'll chat about that another time. For now, though, I do want to quickly have a look and see if we can find the largest mammal-like creature in the realm here. So let's have a look, shall we? There we go. There is one right over there. So this right here is the elephas. And it has some interesting adaptations that allow it to survive in this desert realm. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Being big is actually a bad thing though, because bigger animals will lose heat more slowly. And it will be generating a lot of heat with a lot of cells. So it is potentially going to overheat, especially in this desert environment. But maybe being big is an adaptation to survive predation, because very few things will be able to take down a fully grown elephant. The young ones will be vulnerable, but the big ones not. Now, it does have an adaptation that we also see in modern day elephants that allow it to potentially survive in this desert realm. Notice the extremely wrinkly skin. That wrinkly skin there does two things. If it rains, water will run along those pores and actually wet the entire skin, so that water can then evaporate from the entire skin and it actually cools down quite nicely. But secondly, that wrinkly skin there also increases the surface area relative to the volume that it has. So it increases the area to volume ratio. And if you increase the area to volume ratio, well, then you can lose heat more rapidly. So that is an adaptation that it has. It also has that big sail on its back. And this reminds me very much of Spinosaurus and of some of the other dinosaurs in that Spinosaurus group, which had sails. And it's not exactly known why Spinosaurus had the sails. Same with Dimetrodon, which wasn't a dinosaur, but a predatory synapsid from the Permian period. But in the case here with the elephants, I'm pretty sure that sail there is also to increase the surface area, because you can see there it's a very thin sail. I guess it's not going to increase the volume really, but it is increasing the surface area, so that it can get rid of some of the excess heat. So it increases the area to volume ratio, and whenever there's wind blowing across here, it can blow across that sail there and cool down the blood moving through it, and then hopefully cool down the entire elephant. Interestingly, it has a very, very short trunk with, it seems, keratinization happening there at the tip there. So it seems to almost be hardened at the tip there. Maybe it is feeding on some very tough matter or some very tough plants, and it needs that tip to actually be keratinized to actually break pieces of the vegetation off. And of course, it's basically the nose there, the trunk of this pachyderm over here of the elephant. And it's very, very agile. I mean, we can't move our nose the way the elephants can move their noses, can move their trunks, but they will be using this to pick up food and then maneuver it, take it to their mouth, which is right over there. So right below the trunk, you can see there the mouth, and that keratinization there, that hardening of the trunk, most likely to break down some of these trees here. Interestingly, it doesn't have a long trunk like modern day elephants. Modern day elephants will use the long trunk to also eat grasses. So it could be that the short trunk here, they're generally unable to feed on grasses, but instead will be feeding only on larger shrubs and trees that they can find. And also, one last adaptation. Notice it is a single individual moving around. Very rarely will you actually find herds of these elephants moving through the landscape here. And that's because, well, this is a desert environment. There's not a lot of food, so you cannot support a massive herd of elephants in the landscape here. They need to be solitary individuals, rarely coming together to form a small leash herd. I think the most I've ever seen together are 3. And that's generally when there is like this big individual with 2 smaller ones. And that big individual most likely knows the landscape very well, knows exactly where to find food, where to find water, and they move together as a little herd. So yeah, this is the elephant. Really, really cool. Oh, notice that. One last thing. You can see nails there, and you can see in the footprints there, you can actually see nail imprints as well. Okay, well, if we see more footprints, let's have a look. Come on. Move through a soft environment so we can actually find some there we go, footprints. Now we don't see in elephants nowadays, you don't actually see nails like that, and now you just see this fatty pad imprint in the soil. So it's interesting that the elephant here actually has toenails. It reminds me more of something like a rhino than it does remind me of an elephant. And also it seems to have 4. Let's have a look. How many toenails do you have? And here Will can be seen running behind the elephant, trying to look at his tracks. Indeed, 4 toes. So this is not an odd-toed ungulate like a rhino or a horse. This is, most likely more related to typical elephants we have on Earth. Alright, but this has been fun. I think this is where we are going to end today's episode, everybody. So thank you very much for joining me on a little adventure here. Hope you had fun. I had a lot of fun. I'll be back on Friday with another Enshrouded video, and then next Tuesday carrying on with Nightingale. And until next time, everybody, stay safe. I'll see you all soon. Cheers!